We know it's coming, but how do we prepare our students without stressing them out and making our lessons boring? Well, that's what we're chatting about in this video. If you're new here, I'm Rachel Vincent, and I love sharing ways to help teachers simplify their classrooms and their teaching. The first thing is to break everything down. If your state testing is like mine, it covers the entire school year worth of learning. So we have a lot of skills and a lot of standards that we cover throughout the year that are going to be on the state test. So one of the things we do is we break it down. It depends on where our actual pacing guide ends that year as to how much time we have to review. We tend to have more review time for our ELA skills than we do our math. Because we have more ELA time, we tend to break down our review lessons by skill. So we're reviewing a skill a day or a couple skills if they go together, because ELA is kind of all intertwined. So it keeps us from trying to cram everything in the last minute. Now, math and science, we do have to do a little bit of cramming towards the end of the year just because there's just not enough days in the school year. So that's when we as a grade level have paced out what lessons we think, we could maybe double up on. They're not quite as complex. They don't need as much time. What is some fluff we can cut out? So that is why having pacing guides is so helpful. I have free pacing guides for you down below for 3rd, 4th, or 5th that gives you a good place to get started if your district doesn't provide them for you. And I'll be honest, my district provides them. However, their pacing guides are from the first day of school to the last day of school, and it does not take into account getting the standards taught before testing. I also have a video I filmed last year about how I plan out the rest of the year, making sure there's plenty of time for testing review, so I will link that below as well. So because math tends to we don't have as many review days, we typically do a standard a day for math or a group of standards a day to kind of make sure we're getting it all reviewed before testing. If you're just reviewing, your lessons can get quite boring and tedious, so that's when it is a good time to incorporate review games, interactive lessons to make things a little better. My favorite way to incorporate games during this time of the year are actual games that can go with any content. It doesn't matter what you're actually teaching. Things like tic-tac-toe, Connect 4. I have a whole video all about different review games that go with any content to make things a little bit easier. Take whatever review task cards you're using already. Task cards are a great way to get students up and moving. We like to put them in our hallway, so a group of students can be in the hallway plus in the classroom, moving around, answering those questions so that it's not that sit and get or sit and review. I love playing headband games with students where we hold up words and the students have to know the definition. I have a whole ELA set that I love doing with students. I have them do it with each other. Their favorite one is when they try to quiz me, where I hold up the word, they're given the definition, and I have to guess the word that they're trying to get me to guess. They love it when I play it with them. I will link that below as well. And sometimes just finding a good digital escape room or something to kind of up the ante. Of course, lots of people do room transformations and things like that, which are great if you have the time and mental capacity to do all that. There's so often where I want to do that at the end of the year, but I'm just so kind of run down and burnt out and pushing towards the end that I don't always get to it. So I try to do these little things that make it a little more engaging and interesting that doesn't require a whole lot from me. The next thing I really try to do, and I try to do this all year, is pushing that positive mindset, but I really start to amp it up towards state testing time, especially for students who school is a struggle for them. And so I really want to be able to put in strategies and mantras that they can say to themselves to kind of help them through that. We all know that testing is long and tedious. And so I begin teaching my students breathing techniques and what to do when we don't know how to answer a problem. All throughout the year, I am teaching students how to answer test questions with process of elimination, looking for what the question's actually asking us, looking at the answer choices first to see if we can figure out what we're trying to answer. And so we incorporate that in our lessons all year long, so it's nothing new, but I really kind of amp it up towards state testing time to help them through the process. One of the things I really like to do too is to remind them everything they've already learned, because so often it just feels so ginormous of them having to remember everything. We create charts of everything, so I let them tell me everything they've learned this year just to emphasize that it's not a you have to remember everything. It's a you get to show what you have learned this year, show what you know. Again, it's really about trying to keep stress level of you and your students low during this time. It's spring, behaviors are starting to get a little squirrely. As teachers, we're tired. It is a stressful time of the year, so doing what we can to bring down that stress. I like to give my students a few more brain breaks during this time, especially when it's a lot of test prep. I try to break up my test prep, so if I know that we're gonna spend most of our morning prepping, reviewing, I try to find something a little more engaging and exciting, maybe a science experiment, something to do for students to look forward in the afternoon, or vice versa. A lot of times, since the weather is getting nicer, I like to include maybe a few more team building games that we can go outside for, or maybe a few minutes of extra recess just to get their bodies moving, their brains a break from all of that review that we're doing. If you want some easy, low prep review games that you can add to any of your content areas, check out the video that's on your screen now.